Right now, there is a phrase that's showing up in all kinds of headlines, podcasts, and supplement ads. It is metabolic health. And if you're anything like me, you probably have no idea what it really means. Maybe it's weight, maybe it's something with metabolism, right? Many times in our 40s, that's when we start to realize it might be something we should pay attention to. So today, I'm really excited to be sitting down with Jessica Morrell, owner of Radiant Health and Hormone. She's going to explain it to us in plain terms, which I'm very excited about because I need the plain terms. Jessica and Radiant Health and Hormone was one of the first groups in the entire country to be certified in functional medicine. And she's spent more than a decade helping women through exactly this window. So, that window where things start to get a little dicey, you start to get a little belly fat, you start to wonder what's going on. That's when Jessica and her team can help you navigate that, help you figure out what numbers you should be paying attention to, the changes that your hormones go through, and a handful of things that can actually help. Health and wellness is confusing. There's a new trend every week. Everyone's got an opinion, and half the time you can't tell what's legit from what's just good marketing. And we get it. We're in it too. Welcome to Dialed In Health. I'm Melissa Goodwin. Every episode, we bring in the people who actually do this work: providers, practitioners, the experts who see clients and patients every day. We ask the questions you'd ask if you were sitting across from them so you can find the right people, make better decisions, and feel confident about what's out there. Whether it's peptides, gut health, water quality, ADHD, biohacking, or something you've never heard of, we're covering it. So let's get into it. Let's get dialed in. Thank you, Jessica, for being on the show again today.
Yes.
I'm excited to learn more about this. So for people who don't know Radiant, who have never maybe stepped foot in here, tell us a little bit about Radiant Health and Hormone.
I would say we're kind of an intersection between traditional medicine and a holistic integrative approach. Functional medicine takes a bigger look at lifestyle, a broader evaluation of environment. We just have more tools to use. There's a place for traditional medicine. Sometimes somebody has to have blood pressure medicine. You just sometimes have to do that. But we can take a deeper dive. We take more time, listen, ask more questions than maybe you can get traditionally, and try and find what are the things that are in my life that are affecting this health outcome.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I was at a provider earlier this week, and I had to list the things, and I just started doing hormone replacement therapy. And he said, "Well, where are you getting that stuff at? Do you really need that stuff?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I think it helps me." And he goes, "Okay, I guess that can help people through whatever that thing is you go through." Okay, so then he goes back to his medicine thing, and it's not a knock on him, but it's just, I think, describes perfectly what happens to many of us when we go to our primary care
And
providers.
part of it is the training.
Yeah.
For a long time, hormones were voodoo and so bad, and more and
Right.
more research is coming out to prove that no, that's not the case. That study in 2001 was terrible. In fact, it is protective to the cardiovascular system. In fact, it is helpful for the immune system. It does help your bones. It does help your cognition.
Yeah.
So more and more information is coming.
So you're one of the first groups. You were one of the first in the functional medicine field. I'm really curious. Your master's research was on hormone therapy. Why has this been so important to you? Why did you make this your life's work?
That's an excellent question. It just kind of happened. I knew I wanted to go into women's health. And when I started, I actually thought I was going to work with pregnant women because I had been working in the Air Force, and I was in Alaska, and I was counseling all these newly pregnant women who didn't have any family around them. And I thought, this is there's a need for this. This is kind of fun. And I got into my master's program, and then we started talking about the menopause transition and shift in hormones. And I just refocused because that was so much more interesting to me.
Wow, and I think, you know, babies are one of the things. Obviously, that's an amazing time of life, and everyone's attracted to that. But in your 40s and 50s, sometimes earlier than that, like the transition, it is no joke.
It can be severe.
So tell us, when a woman finds their way to you, what is the feelings that you hear when they walk in? What are the things that they describe and say to you over and over again?
They don't feel like themselves. They're very irritable. They are gaining weight and they have not changed a thing about their life.
Hmm.
They're not sleeping. They have no energy. They just feel like they're having an out of body experience, or they're not connected with themselves.
You know, it's interesting that, and I hear that a lot, like that they don't feel like themselves. I had gotten so far away from myself that I didn't realize that that was happening to me.
It's so gradual.
And so I knew that I was starting to gain weight. And I knew that I was feeling, just tired a lot. But I had, 3 kids at home, a really demanding job. I thought that's really what it was. And so until I had some replacement therapy, I had no idea I could feel good.
Hmm.
It'd been years of just feeling drained all the time. And so I didn't know.
Right. And then people tell you, oh, you're just busy.
Yeah.
You're just busy.
Stressed out. You're stressed.
Hmm.
Which, yes,
Which
we're
we
all
are.
stressed. Okay, so tell us, what are the things you've seen a lot in functional medicine? And now we see more and more people in the space. What do you see that you find really encouraging?
More people in the space, more talk about it.
Right.
It's a recognized term. I think I'm most encouraged by people paying attention to what they're doing in their lives and the shift that has happened by consumers, because now when you go to the grocery store, there's so much more available, either in information on the label or for food allergens, or just the consumer demand has shifted from when I first started this. Like, to
Okay.
find something gluten-free in the early 2000s was impossible
Sure.
for, when we're doing elimination diets. And now there's just so many more options. Now, they're not all good options on a lot of this stuff. It's still a lot of junk food that is healthy. But I think the awareness and the growth in consumers that has changed even cleaning products, facial care, is really encouraging.
So tell us, now that there's all these people in this space and a lot of attention on this space, conversely, what do you find discouraging, or what do you worry about?
The level of education,
Okay.
because now there's a lot of programs out there, but it's maybe a weekend online seminar,
Right.
and now you're certified in something. Um, so I just don't, that can get people in trouble if they don't really understand what they're doing
Mm-hmm.
or what they're looking for. Um, I think another thing that concerns me is sometimes you can become an absolutist, where, even from patients, like they have it in their mindset that they've been on these 8 medications and now they want to change their lifestyle. So they're just going to stop all those medications. And that's kind of scary. You can't do it that way. Yes, you can probably get off some of your medications, but it has to be gradual and it has to be monitored. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think swinging too much one way could
Sure.
be a little concerning too.
I do see a lot of folks that seem to be now like, I'm now a peptide coach, or now I'm I do Dutch tests, and then I'll
Mhm.
coach you through weight and things like that, where it seems like specific and not connected to the other maybe aspects of your health. Is that concerning to you? Or
What's more information for people? Um, the peptides are new to the general public,
right.
very exciting, but they are not magical.
Yeah.
They're helpful. They're a piece of the puzzle, but we are all looking for quick fixes, and we think the peptide is going to do that. And nothing works if you do not have the consistency of a balanced lifestyle.
That's the hard part that none of us really want to do.
Right.
When sometimes the world makes it very hard to do that.
It is hard to do that.
Yeah.
We live in a society where production is valued.
Right.
And like, if you're not working at least 40, 50 hours a week, you're a slacker. And
Right.
if you would take time to do something for yourself, that's how can you do that?
You feel guilty. You feel
Yes.
shameful for doing that. Let's talk a little bit. We came to talk about metabolic health. And I'll be honest, I see the term too, and I'm like, well, what exactly does that mean? Help us understand when someone says metabolic health, what are they talking about?
We're talking about the energy production in the body.
Okay.
So also the way the body uses glucose, what happens with insulin, lipid panels, the blood pressure, which is a kind of a measure of inflammation in the vessels if it's high. Basically, when you fuel your body, how that is processed, how it moves through the body, that's metabolic health. So your metabolism is
Mhm.
part of your metabolic health. How your body breaks down cholesterol, stores it or doesn't store it. If your body can actively store glucose correctly so that you can use it later, that's
Okay.
ideal. And that's muscle has a great impact on that.
Sure. So I guess when I hear metabolism, I just think weight, or you hear people they burn it off fast.
Mhm.
So when you're looking at someone's metabolic health, how are you measuring someone's metabolic health? Like, do we all have different metabolisms and
Yes.
so tell us a little bit more about that.
We all have different metabolisms, but I would say the key markers are a fasting glucose. Insulin is a very important marker in
Okay.
metabolic health, rarely measured. Um, Blood pressure, lipid panel, waist circumference,
Okay.
body mass index to some degree. I think that's a terrible measure of overall health because you can have some very fit, very muscular people that will just be high on the BMI where they have very low body fat.
Okay.
So, but it does play a role. I think another interesting measurement is grip strength.
Oh, yeah.
So that
Okay.
is a predictor of longevity because it does tell you muscularly where someone stands.
I'd never thought about that.
That's an easy thing to check.
Okay.
Yeah, and something you can measure and see improve.
So I'm assuming you test those 5 things, insulin, and so when someone comes to you and says like I can't lose weight, or I'm really struggling, I'm eating less. When do you start to suspect, let's start to take a look at this and measure it and see how do we improve it?
Right away.
Okay.
Even in people who have fatigue, if weight hasn't really changed, but they feel like their cognition has changed or they're fatigued,
Okay.
they don't have exercise stamina, I start looking at that.
Okay.
Because you will have these vague symptoms before you have a 20-pound weight gain, or also obviously in people who have gained a lot of weight rapidly, we do, or just any weight gain over time.
Quick break. This episode is brought to you by Vitality Growth Labs. If you're a health or wellness practice and you're wondering why your phone isn't ringing the way it should be, Vitality Growth Labs builds the systems to fix that. Get found, build trust, fill your calendar. AI authority stacking, videos that connect with your clients, real tools, strategy, and execution that results in real revenue. Visit vitalitygrowthlabs.com or check the provider directory at vitalitygrowthlabs.com/the directory to find a trusted wellness provider near you. All right, back to the show.
So you said insulin is an important one that is almost never measured. What does insulin tell you, and why do we not get it measured very
I
often?
don't know why we don't get it measured because it's not a hard test to measure,
Okay.
but it tells us how hard the body is working to transport that glucose. So
Okay.
if I'll often have somebody do a fasting glucose and insulin, and then we'll give them a 75-gram carbohydrate challenge. They'll intake 75 grams of carbohydrate. And then we'll measure their labs at 1 hour and or 2 hours after. And we will see a spike in the insulin, and that tells me that they are in insulin resistance. It is taking so much more insulin for them to transport that glucose. It's inefficient.
Mm.
Pancreas is working hard, and insulin promotes fat gain and cognitive issues.
So you when you're measuring insulin, you're measuring not how much you have, but the insulin's ability to spike. Tell me.
You're measuring how much you have at this fasting period,
Yep.
and then you're measuring after that carbohydrate challenge, how much is the body having to make? How much do you have then?
Okay.
Because that's what's transporting the glucose.
Got it.
Into the
Okay.
muscle.
And so you can see the efficiency there.
Yes.
All right.
Or inefficiency.
So if you're inefficient, what do you
Yes.
do?
We take a very long look at their diet.
All right.
Exercise has a huge impact on that insulin production. Sometimes we'll do some herbals, sometimes we'll do some prescriptions, sometimes we'll do a peptide. It depends on what how much it's changed, what the patient wants to do, how aggressive they want to be.
Okay.
But it is foundational is always diet and exercise.
Why do you think, as we get older, we have issues with weight? Is the inefficiency just the fact that we're getting older, or is that inefficiency all of a sudden just happen when you turn 40?
Hormones do play a role in that.
Okay.
As estrogen drops, you become much more inefficient metabolically, and you start losing muscle, and you can't burn the brown fat, the visceral fat. That's the dangerous fat around your vital organs, and you start gaining that, which makes your metabolism more inefficient, causes weight gain. Same thing happens with testosterone, so it happens to both men and women. That's a big piece. And just if over time you have not been a consistent exerciser through your 30s and you've started to have some muscle loss, well, it just also starts to catch up.
Right.
And so the less muscle you have, the slower your metabolism, the less ability you have to store that glucose that can then be used for glycogenesis. So then you're storing more in fat and it just becomes a compounding issue.
Right. It's a vicious cycle. So 1 in 8 adults is healthy on all 5 of those markers.
Mm-hmm.
So that means a lot of us are having issues with metabolic syndrome. So it's age and exercise and what else?
What you're feeding your body.
Okay.
Toxic exposures. It all impacts the mitochondria, which are the little energy producers in your cell.
Right.
The little engines. Not really, but that's the best way to describe
Sure.
them. The mitochondria is what makes that ATP, that energy production, which the glucose is so important for.
Okay.
And so as you lose muscle, you lose that ability. The mitochondria is affected by not only the loss of muscle, because that's the most efficient way to do it, but it can be impacted by the toxins surrounding you, can be impacted by lower hormone levels.
So when you go out with your friends, do they all just pepper you with questions about what to do?
Not usually.
Okay, just curious. They're like, what should I do? So what if you are thin? Can you still have a metabolic problem?
Oh yeah, skinny fat people.
Okay,
all the
tell us
time.
about the skinny fat people. What's going on there?
They don't have muscle mass.
Okay.
I think one of my biggest concerns with all the weight loss that has been going on with Ozempic is that they are losing muscle, which is then damaging their mitochondria. And eventually the metabolic system is just shot. So if you are losing weight rapidly by losing muscle, you're not helping your long-term longevity.
Right. Well, and it feels good to be in a smaller size sometimes, but then, yeah, what is that actually costing you in the long term?
And that's why the number on the scale is really useless. The body composition, where you can see what is the body muscle mass versus the body skeletal mass versus the fat, both the subcutaneous fat and the visceral fat.
Okay.
That is really what should be monitored.
Do you guys monitor that here?
We do. We have a 3D scale called a STIKU.
Okay.
And it just takes a minute. You just stand on it. It spins you in a circle, and it does all the measurements and evaluates.
Tells you your brown fat. That's a term I'm not familiar with.
Visceral fat.
Okay,
yes.
visceral fat. All right. So tell me around, you said hormone. So is insulin a hormone? Did we say we talked about that last time?
Yes.
So hormones are running everything. And your hormones, as those change, you said insulin is one of the main things that is not measured. What are the other 4 things that we need to pay attention to? Glucose.
I think a really
That's sugar, just intake.
Usually. But if somebody's on a steroid, that'll throw their glucose off.
Okay.
Stress can throw your glucose off, and
Okay.
illness. I think a really interesting tool that is so easy for people to get now is a continuous glucose monitor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just wearing one for 2 to 4 weeks will really show you what you're eating does to your glucose, because there may be things that you think are really healthy,
Right.
but it spikes your glucose because it's not healthy for you, or it's too much, or you're not pairing it with enough protein and other fiber.
Right.
So I think that's a really valuable tool for people to have to see what their intake does to their individual blood sugar.
That is interesting. I've seen those on, Facebook ads and whatever. And I'm curious, but so it's a good tool, but that's just one of the measurements is the
Correct,
glucose,
is the
right?
glucose.
So it helps you see spikes, foods that will spike and a spike is not good. You want steady glucose.
Well, if you have a spike, as long as it comes down quickly, I mean, you don't want to spike too high, but
Okay.
you will have variability in your glucose is normal.
Like every time you eat,
Every
right?
time you eat, there should be some spike, but within the normal range.
Right. Okay. So glucose, insulin, what else should we be paying attention to?
Cholesterol panels.
Okay.
However, we can only monitor that with a grain of salt because LDL is the bad cholesterol. But there's two forms of LDL. There's the big, fat, fluffy LDL that's really not plaque forming. And then there's the small density LDL that we should be worried about.
Okay.
So if somebody has a high LDL, I like to do an advanced panel to see what's their small density versus their large density. What's a lipoprotein A, which is probably one of the biggest risk factors for cardiovascular disease if that's high. And it's partially genetic, so it's hard to move the needle on that one.
Okay.
But we'll do advanced lipid panels if the standard lipid panel looks a little out of range.
And how does your cholesterol affect your metabolism?
It's more of a marker that you have a poor metabolism
Okay.
than directly impacting your metabolism.
Got it. Okay. So if you're eating, a lot of really high saturated fat foods and things like that, that's not necessarily.
Trans fat. Yeah.
Yeah. It is a correlative, but not necessarily causing.
Not
metabolic
not necessarily causing metabolic issues, but it is your cholesterol is off because you have metabolic issues.
Sure. Okay. That makes sense. So you mentioned mitochondria and ATP. So tell us a little bit about, is that something that we as the consumer need to worry about or think about? I know there's all kinds of supplements and things that talk about cellular level and mitochondrial health, but I don't really know. Like, I don't have time to sit and do a biochemistry breakdown on what all that means.
Probably
What do we need to worry about? What do we need to think about?
I think you need to worry about what can I do consistently that is good for my body,
Okay.
because that is going to help my energy production. Whether you know it's because of ATP production or mitochondria or not, that doesn't matter. It matters that you know you need to be doing the things, 150 minutes a week of exercise, varied strength, some cardio, eating well, getting whole foods, those practical things consistently. There's
Right.
no magic. I wish I had a magic wand to make it.
Yeah, that's such a bummer. I really want a magic wand too, for a number of reasons, not just food, but
Yeah.
other things too.
Yes.
All right. So I want to improve my health. Tell me specifically when you talk about food and protein and fiber. I know we talked about psyllium husk a while back. We
Yeah.
were talking about fiber. I bought some. It doesn't taste like anything. It's sort of like drinking it gets really thick, like a
Yeah.
jelly kind of thing.
You have to drink it fast.
Wasn't bad. Yeah, okay. This is all right. So tell us about food, protein, and fiber. Like, what should we be high level? Is there any general rules you give to people who are like, I have no idea what to do? Where do I start?
There are some nuances, but I would say as a general rule, you want protein throughout the day, an average of 30 grams per meal, depending on the person. You want 25 to 35 grams of fiber minimum a day through a variety of sources, not all from a supplement. Lots of color in your vegetables and fruits. And you have to be hydrated.
It sounds like not a lot of fun.
It can be very fun. There are colorful plates. And
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
I agree. I was giving you a little bit of
Yeah.
So when you talk about muscle, how does muscle and blood sugar and muscle, what is the correlation there?
The more muscle you have,
Okay.
the more flexibility you're going to have in the amount of sugar you can have, because you're going to be able to store it more efficiently and use it more efficiently.
Okay.
So the body stores the excess glucose, and then when the body needs it,
Mhm.
so if you've eaten and 3 hours later you're doing something, and your body needs glucose. Well, your muscles got that, and it just keeps it in homeostasis.
Okay. So if you have never thought about my muscle mass, let's
Mhm.
say I'm, and it's funny. I joked this morning because I started a new weightlifting program, and I said, in the 80s and 90s, girls didn't lift weights.
No.
Like that was not a thing. You ran, like we did the sports and stuff, but we did not.
Step aerobics.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Right. Step aerobic, jazzercise, maybe
Yes.
something like that. And so if you've never done anything with weights, or you don't know anything about your muscle mass, how do you find out what you have? Where am I at? Like, am I in a good range?
The STIKU will tell you.
Okay.
3D body scan. Grip strength will tell you.
Tell me about the grip strength. What are you testing there? What do you use to test that?
It's just a little device that you squeeze and it gives a number. And
Okay.
then we have a scale that
All right.
tells where you are based on age. Which, if you really want longevity and you are 60, you probably don't want the grip strength of a 70-year-old or 60-year-old. You want the grip strength of a 40-year-old.
Okay.
People know if they're weak. They know if they don't have good muscle mass. If you can't lift your suitcase up in the airplane to put it above above your seat, then you probably don't have great muscle mass.
You need to start grabbing some weights.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
well.
if you have never lifted weights, just start with body weight or some bands, lightweight, and work your way up, because we don't want to create injury.
Right.
And working with someone who is trained in that probably would be a great idea to start.
Right. That makes sense. So tell me about how hormone therapy fits in the midst of all of this because I would imagine people come in because they're like, I don't feel good. I don't feel like myself. Got some belly fat. How does hormone therapy fit?
Estrogen really impacts metabolism because it impacts the way you store fat. So that's why when estrogen drops, we start to notice increased central weight gain.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that happens when hormones drop is cortisol goes up because it's trying to compensate. And cortisol promotes weight gain as well. So that's kind of a double whammy. Testosterone impacts muscle mass. So as testosterone drops in men and women, we have a hard time maintaining muscle mass.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole drop just promotes sarcopenia.
Okay. What is that?
The loss of muscle mass.
Sarcopenia.
Yeah.
Okay. You said something you said central weight gain.
Yeah.
I like that term. Feeling a little central weight gain.
Yes.
Sounds so much nicer than belly fat.
That's the dangerous gain because that's the visceral. A lot of times that's around the vital organs, and
that's what you
that
don't
leads
want.
to fatty liver, and you don't want that.
Right. Okay. So tell me, we talked a little bit about GLP medications, but on a high level, what are they doing to your body from a metabolic standpoint?
The body creates GLP on its own. When this signal of food has come, there's a GLP release. So the GLP medications are augmenting that.
Okay.
A lot of times as we age, the peptides in the body, because almost all the peptides are naturally found in the body, they're amino acid chains. We just can't complete the chains as we age.
Okay.
Or because of injury, illness, over time. So the peptides are just giving the full amino acid chain to make that process work that's already been going on in the body.
Okay.
So it is making the glucose and insulin maybe communicate a little more efficiently, stimulating the appropriate insulin production, calming the system down.
Okay.
We're finding a lot of inflammation goes down with these as well because I think it stabilizes the insulin more.
And that's with all of them. There's so many different GLP ones. It's really confusing. Is that kind of a general rule for all of them?
For the GLPs, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So another thing, you started offering some genetic testing.
Yeah.
So without going into like a ton of detail, because that could be its own probably conversation, how does knowing your own genetic makeup change the focus of all of this?
So the test will show us where your susceptibilities are. What nutritional deficiencies are you susceptible to? Are you a person who's likely to feel full after you eat appropriately? Are you going to get that signaling?
Mm-hmm.
So people who don't have that signaling, we know we have to tell them you have to be very diligent about looking at your portion sizes and just knowing that's enough because your body's not going to tell you that,
Mm.
which is really helpful when people know, okay, it's not,
Yeah.
it's more than just willpower. It also tells us what type of exercise is going to be most efficient for this person, what they're going to
How is that possible? This is always kind of thrown me for a loop. So tell me, how can you take a genetic test and then tell me what type of exercise I can do?
Because of the genes that it's testing, will say if you're more of an endurance person or are you a short muscle exerciser.
Okay.
And so it will tell you, not that you can't do those other exercises, but it also tells us, are you going to be efficient and when you exercise, you're going to make gains quickly, or are you going to be inefficient and you're not going to see a lot of gains when you exercise? Because when people work out and they don't see any gains, they stop.
Right.
But if they know genetically, I'm not going to see gains, but I know it's helping things, but I know genetically I'm not going to see the gains, they're more inclined to continue going.
So your genetic testing can tell me what kind of exercise I should do or will give me the most gains.
What's going to be most efficient for your body?
It will tell me my ability to signal that I'm full.
Yeah, if you have that or not. Also
Okay.
will tell us, are you prone to having B vitamin deficiencies? Are you prone to, mineral deficiencies?
Okay. And that would change your diet because you might need a supplementation
Right.
or
Or what should we test for these things?
okay. Oh, interesting. Well,
Because
this
I
is
probably don't need to test all those vitamins in every person. But if
right.
I know you're genetically susceptible to a zinc deficiency, I probably want to check your zinc.
Right. Oh, that's super interesting. Okay. Well, so that's test is available right now?
It is. Yeah, it's a cheek swab.
Okay. Oh, and that's easy. Nice.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay. So I've got some statements here and you're going to tell me if they're true or false. We're going to move into the Mythbusters
Okay.
section. All right. So if a woman has 15 minutes a day and that is all, actually, this is like maybe, I don't know if this is a Mythbuster or not. What is the first thing she should do?
Move her body and make a meal plan.
A meal plan.
It's like for the next tomorrow, what am I going to eat?
Yeah.
And 10 minutes of movement.
I love that. And I never do it. I need to do that because I go to the grocery store and I'm like, what should I get? One of these, maybe some of this.
You got a meal plan first and then go to the grocery store.
That's right. I know. You're right. I need help with this. Can you go? Yeah. Do you have services for that too?
No.
Maybe a possibility for expansion down the road. Okay. For people like me. All right. What's that one habit that compounds the most over a year?
Exercise.
Okay.
Resistance training.
Resistance
training consistently.
And resistance training means bands?
It means any kind of weight training.
Okay. If a listener takes one thing from this conversation, Jessica, regarding metabolic health, kind of overall, all the things that you offer here, what do you want it to be?
That they're really in the driver's seat. There's a lot of noise and a lot of things that will target your metabolic health. But if you can be consistent at moving your body and fueling your body, anything else that we will do, because you're still going to have the needs, that's not going to fix your hormones, it's not going to fix your thyroid if it's off. But everything else that you do on top of that will only work better.
I love that. So, perfect client. I see all kinds of people come through your doors, all ages, men and women.
Yeah.
Tell me if there's somebody out there that like really needs help in the like if you're feeling this, what might they be feeling if they're like need to give you a call? If you're feeling X, Y, or Z.
I would say just if you don't feel like you're on top of your game and you don't wake up in the morning excited about the day, you need to come see us.
I love that. All right. So now I'm really going to read some statements about some Mythbusters here. So metabolic health is just about your weight.
No, that's probably the worst measure of your metabolic health.
The worst measure. Okay.
Because it isn't telling you how efficient are you at making energy. It doesn't say anything about your muscle mass. And there can be some very metabolically unhealthy people who have an excellent BMI.
Okay. Belly fat in midlife, you just need to eat less.
No, you probably need to eat more. Women have been starving themselves their entire lives, and it just has depleted their metabolisms. And when you start gaining weight because your estrogen has dropped and you are already underfeeding your body, you're just shutting your metabolism down more.
We have been starving ourselves
We
our whole
have
life.
been our
Yeah.
entire lives.
And so for those women that have been doing that, like what's the fix?
It is probably working with a nutritionist would be helpful, but you have to overfeed for a while, for a couple weeks to get the metabolism revved up, and then drop it a little bit and keep the activity going, because exercise really promotes that metabolic movement.
So exercise and see a nutritionist. More cardio. So I grew up in the land of cardio. Jane Fonda was all over. I think there was like a buns of steel in there. So she was doing some
Tybo.
She was doing some squats, but mostly, yeah, Tybo, Jane Fonda, jazzercise. So I grew up in the cardio era.
Cardio is still important, but it's not the only thing.
Okay.
Needs to be a mix of resistance training and cardio.
Okay. A slow metabolism after menopause, it's just going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it.
If you don't do anything, there's nothing you can do about it. But you can do things about it. Is it going to be as easy as it was when you were 20? No. But you can boost it. There are things you can do. And those things are also really important for your bones.
Sure.
And your balance. And if you want to live independently when you're in your 80s and 90s, you have to have strength and you have to have balance.
So all of this is too complicated, not worth understanding.
That's just giving up. No, it's not. It is back to the just simple baseline. You have to fuel your body with real food, enough protein, good fiber, and you have to move your body consistently.
All right, last one is I feel fine, so my metabolism is fine.
That's possible. Or it's not, because a lot of times we think we feel fine, but do you feel great?
Right.
And if you compare yourself to 10 years ago, do you feel the same?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that just goes back to, right. I didn't think there was anything wrong necessarily, because I thought I was just overworked and overstressed and overthink, all the things that happen in midlife.
Yes.
So you might not even realize you're really not fine.
No, you don't, until you really take a good look and compare where you were 5 or 10 years ago to where you are now.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about metabolic health. And so obviously when you start to gain weight, that's problematic. And then there's like a certain point where that becomes really problematic. So tell us a little bit about insulin, the dangers of not paying attention to your insulin, what can happen.
The whole reason I'm testing this early is to try and prevent someone from going into type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
I guess the culmination of really poor metabolic health is cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. And that's where we really don't want people to go. Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women.
Okay.
It's not cancer, it's cardiovascular disease, which is a metabolic issue. So that's why knowing where you're at metabolically really helps maintain longevity. And that's what we want.
Having a baseline of your glucose, insulin, your cholesterol, and there was
Blood pressure, waist circumference. And if you can get an understanding of what your body composition is, the fat to muscle ratios.
And your grip strength.
And yeah, grip strength.
All of those things. And you guys do all of that here. You
We
can
do
get
it all
kind of
here.
a baseline, see where you're at, see where your risk zones might be, if you will.
And what can you do to course correct?
Love it. And your genetic test too, tell you what you should do. I love that. Anything else that you would want someone to know about anything else that is commonly misconstrued about metabolic health that you'd like to clear up while you have the opportunity?
Just changing to artificial sweeteners is not going to fix it.
Yeah, it's not just about sugar.
No. And actually, when you have an artificial sweetener, you get that sweet sense on your tongue, which sends a message to your brain, which tells your pancreas to release some insulin because there's glucose coming. But there's not glucose coming. So now you have spiked this insulin and there's no glucose for it to transport.
Oh, is that with stevia too, or other things like that? Allulose and all of those
Yes.
as well?
Yes.
So you shouldn't be doing those.
Well, not that you can't do them, but you can't think that there's no reaction by the body.
No
just because it's
repercussion.
not sugar.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I have to rethink everything. I thought it was, I mean, not that I thought it was all about sugar, but I did think reducing sugar would help a lot from a dietary
And it
standpoint.
does. And it's not that you can't use a stevia, once in a while, but it's best if you have it not alone,
Okay.
like with some protein, with some fiber.
Got it. Well, this is why we need you, Jessica, why we need you and your team, because there's just so much information out there. It's really hard to know for the average consumer. You might think you're doing something good for yourself.
Right.
And then kind of shooting yourself in the foot,
Yeah.
so to
Or
speak.
creating another problem.
Yeah, I've got a cupboard full of allulose, stevia, monk fruit,
Yeah.
because I thought I was doing a good thing.
And those are much better than some of the other artificial sweeteners. So.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Every time I meet with you, I'm like, oh, got to redo that. Okay. I didn't realize that was happening, but it's helpful too, because now
Yes.
we can understand, some of the repercussions of that. So
Yeah.
thank you again for being on the show.
Yeah.
I look forward to the next time when we're going to talk about more of maybe the genetic testing, or
Maybe.
who knows?
What will be new? What will be buzzing then?
Thanks, Jessica.
Hey, that's our show. If someone came to mind while you were listening to this, if you thought, hey, my sister needs to hear this, or I should send this to my mom, or my buddy would get a lot out of this, please share it with them. Just hit the share button and send it their way. You never know what one conversation, one episode, or one piece of information can do for someone who's been looking for answers. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. It takes 2 seconds, it's free, and it means you won't miss an episode. We've got incredible stuff coming up, and I don't want you to miss any of it. And if you're a health or wellness provider and you want to be on the show, we'd love to hear from you. There's a link in the show notes to get in touch. We're always looking for people doing interesting work who want to share what they know. And one last thing, I get asked all the time about the products and brands I actually use. So I put together a list of sponsors and favorite products that have worked for me and my family. If you're curious, that link is in the show notes too. Thank you for being here. And I really mean that. I'm Melissa Goodwin. The line is open. See you next time.